Blog Talk Radio.
Carol the Coach. Sex, love, and relationships. We talk about it here.
Carol the Coach. Compassion with contemporary relevance.
I am a psychotherapist. I can be your personal life coach, and I can help you with your issues. There are no problems too small or too big. You can talk about anything.
Speaker, columnist, radio TV host, and commentator. Carol the Coach brings messages of wellness and empowerment within reach of everyday people every day.
Almost 5 years ago, I lost my soulmate in an accident. He was killed in a plane crash. Life just, for me, has seemed to stop.
There are groups all over the city. I teach one. It is a specific way to start thinking so that you shift how you see the world, which then shifts your energy, and then you feel better and you actually see things differently.
Carol the Coach. Always available, too, at carolthecoach.com.
Now, I've got Russell on the line.
I'm 47 years old. I'm a truck driver. I'm married. I have a wife in San Francisco.
Okay.
I haven't been home in 6 months. My thing is, I don't know if I have a sex addiction or what the problem is. Why do I want what I can't have? And as soon as I can have it, I don't want it anymore.
You're right on target when you say, I don't know if I have a sexual addiction. Well, guess what? Yes, you do. And you know what? That's my specialty, Russell. So you're at the right place. Continue.
I meet women online, and I'm in a different part of the country. I travel all 48 states, so I love sex.
I hear self-esteem issues. You never felt good enough, and you didn't feel like you were getting what you should have then, and you're reenacting that now. Do you want to change that about yourself?
You get what you need.
I got an interesting email.
You know, I get lots of interesting emails all the time, and people are wondering, what is going on, Carol? We heard you're retiring, and we want to know, are you taking clients? We want to see you. So I thought I'd talk to you a little bit before Reese Busimio comes on to talk about his podcast and his sober living circle. You know, okay, so I'll never retire. I just know I won't. I want to, but A, I love what I do, and B, I can't imagine depending on 401k right now, if you know what I mean. And I really thought I would retire so that I could create different projects. The truth of the matter is, I just wrote Help Them Heal, and I thought I would do that in retirement, and that didn't happen. And I want to do workshops for couples, and I thought I'd wait till I stopped seeing clients, but I continue to see the clients I have, and that means that I got to get going on these workshops. And you know that I've got a couple of those coming up. And I wanted to educate counselors and coaches all over the world on IRCA, the Early Recovery Couples Empathy Model. I really felt like that was important because this is a partner-sensitive couples program where the couple works together to help her heal, and also to build the necessary foundation forward in their lives. And we all know that this partner betrayal and sex addiction can take a couple down. And so I wanted to teach clinicians and coaches the right way to do it. And so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do that with the different organizations that I'm a part of. I've done it for APSAPS for about a year and a half. You all know that that's the partner-sensitive organization that trains clinicians and coaches how to keep partners safe. They do an amazing job. I want to do that with ITAP. That is the organization that certifies sex addiction therapists and pastoral counselors. And so that's a really exciting thing. I want to do it for the Society for the Advancement of Sexual Health, SASH. To be able to do that means that I just cannot be stretched quite so far. And so, yes, I'm not taking clients. I am doing consultations. It was 3 to 5, but what I found out is it makes much more sense to do 5 to 10 consultations. And that way I can help get you to the right people, the people that I think are the best in the industry, or the people that are in your state that you may not be aware of. And I can do workshops for you, and I can run partner groups and sex addict therapy groups and helper heal groups. And I do want to do a help them heal group. Now, the criteria for that is that you need to have read the book. And this book is I've got it right here, but I think it's 360 pages. So I've got to give you a little time because it just came out in June, 5 weeks ago. So to do those groups, I'm going to walk you through this together and develop support. And that's what I've always wanted to do. So I got a lot on my plate, but I want you to know that my goal as I lean into retirement is really to connect you to the people that absolutely know how to work with you the best as an addict, as a partner, or as a couple. And there are a lot of people out there. That being said, I am super excited about our guest today. Reese Pusnimio, and I'll have to make sure I got that last name right, is an amazing clinician who's also a certified alcohol and drug counselor and soon to be a certified IFS practitioner. He is the podcast professional and produces the Outer Circle Inner Stillness podcast. And today he's going to be talking to us about the sober way of life. He really believes that recovery is much more than just behavior change. It's that transformation I'm always talking to you about of the whole person. And so he's going to talk about his spiritual journey as well as what his clients likely experience when they're on their spiritual journey. So whenever I've got somebody who's willing to talk about what Patrick Carnes taught me, which of course was that somebody who has great recovery is much more likely to have been through excruciating suffering that leads to a real enlightenment and transformation, and then full circles it by giving back to others. And I do believe that's what Reese has done, and that's what he's going to be talking about today. So, Reese, welcome to Sex Health with Carol the Coach.
Hi, Carol. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And, I remember hearing about you on our listserv and saying, I've got to contact this guy. I got to find out about his podcast. I got to find out about his principles. I got to find out about his spiritual journey. And so I contacted you, and you said, yeah, I'd love to come on the show. So can I ask you to first share with our listening audience, what's the story behind your podcast? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, thank you. Part of the story, I like to talk, and I have opinions, and I like to talk about my opinions, because there's always that. But more seriously, so like you mentioned, I'm an addictions counselor, also in recovery, and the major part of that has always been facilitating groups. And so I facilitate a couple men's recovery groups. And one thing that I started noticing in my groups was these guys who would, labor to get their initial sobriety, and then once they had it, some of them, they would be asking, okay, so now I've gotten clean, I've gotten the software, I've done the work into disclosure, whatever, but now what? How do I live as a sober person? Or how can I tell that my sobriety is working? And they were especially getting questions from their partners who were watching, okay, so my husband, my boyfriend, he's going to groups, he's going to session, he's not talking to me yet, how do I know anything's going on? And there's a lot going on there. But part of it came out of wanting to really explore what is the sober way of life? And how can you tell, what makes a sober person different? So there's that strong theme in the podcast. And for me also, just through my life and my professional growth and my spiritual growth, I had just started noticing a lot of correlations between a sobriety process and spiritual growth. Spiritual disciplines and sobriety work, they seem to overlap and use a lot of the same tools, sometimes use similar language, sometimes work towards different things, work towards similar things. And so I wanted to explore that. I wanted to explore how do these two disciplines inform each other, what can they learn from each other, how can the clinical world speak into more of like the church world, what can the clinical world gain from the faith community, and in there is this idea of like growing in the inner life as a strong priority. So that's kind of the story of the podcast.
Okay, and so do you openly then talk about your own personal journey?
Yes and no. I don't hide it at all. I don't have any secrets really. But I don't necessarily lead with my own journey all of the time. More just in passing. When I'm in a discussion group or interviewing someone, I mean, my goal is to really like draw attention to the best parts of the listener. Or the best parts of the person I'm interviewing. And so where my story is useful as point of reference, I'm happy to share. But yes, I am pretty open with my own story.
Well, got it. And, both of us are certified sex addiction therapists, and we know that when a man or a woman struggles with one addiction, they typically struggle with several. And so, I was going to ask you, because obviously you believe so strongly that a recovery process needs to be a spiritual one. And Patrick Carnes says that typically that means they have to hit rock bottom when they're willing to surrender to the process of something bigger than themselves, creating that recovery, co-creating that recovery. Tell me, what is your belief in how people get sober? What is that sober way of life? Two questions, really.
Yeah. How do people get sober? How do people grow? How do people find healing? Big question. So that is a lot of what I've been exploring in little bits over the podcast. Generally speaking, though, there comes a point, and sometimes that point looks like a rock bottom point, but we're brought to a point of readiness. We're brought to a point where we're ready to learn, ready to grow. Thinking through, my story and some different growth points. I might be a little bit different in that I maybe never quite hit like a rock bottom point where my life was completely unmanageable, lost everything, major trouble, major consequences. But I have had some difficulties, and I'd say probably like the leading up to when I actively started my recovery, there was a lot of chaos and some. I'm not going to tell the whole story now how things came out, but like things came out and I needed to take action on them or I was going to lose things. And I had the right combination of stakes and also people supporting me, and I was just open to a change and ready for a change. And probably the other major moment of change like that for me was converting to Eastern Orthodox Christianity. And I'd grown up in the church, the Protestant churches, and just had a lot of challenges and again, a lot of story there. But it came to a point where I knew I needed something, and I was ready. And then revelation happened. The right people stepped into my life at the right time, and and through that point of readiness, I was able to accept something new. But that point of readiness, like we're saying, it often comes through pain. I'd had some losses. I'd had some disappointments. I'd had some disillusionments. I had to kind of deconstruct everything that I once held to be true. Find myself kind of with nothing. And from that nothingness, I found an openness to what was good. And so, so I guess that was kind of my rock bottom point. It's not quite the classic, like I woke up in jail one day, but I did kind of wake up one day and realize, like, I can't continue the way I'm continuing, and I don't know what to do.
Yeah, well, and so I know when I was reading your bio, obviously you said that was a turning point when you got into, became an Eastern Orthodox Christian. Tell our listening audience what that is, because I have to admit, I don't even know what that is.
Yeah, I didn't a couple years ago. So, to nerd out on church history for just a moment. So Christianity, obviously, it starts with the person of Jesus Christ 2,000 years ago, and then in the timeline, so there's the initial apostolic period where the 12 disciples become the 12 apostles, and that's what chronicled in the New Testament book of Acts. And then that is the beginning of the church. And then there were, in the Middle Eastern European world, they developed about 5 major centers of the church, major cities. So it's like Jerusalem, Antioch, Rome, Alexandria, Constantinople, which is now Istanbul. And those, there was the 5 bishops of each one were basically the leaders of the church. And they were all conciliar, so they were all equal peers. And then drama happens, and then the Bishop of Rome essentially breaks away and becomes the Catholic Church that we know today. And then from the Catholic Church emerged the Protestant Reformation, and all that is like the Protestant evangelical movement today. But all of this time in the East has been the Orthodox Church. So the Eastern Orthodox Church, it's the ancient historic Christian faith, and I mean, there's obviously a lot we could say about what that is, but that's what that is. That's where that is in time and in geography, and it's that's
a little history. Now, let me ask you then, when you joined that Eastern Orthodox Christianity, how did that fit into creating a sober way of life? I mean, what makes sober people distinct from others, and what do you mean by sober way of life?
Yeah, there's actually just really recently, I wrote a book called Thinking Orthodox, and in that book, the author, Dr. Jeannie Constantinou, she introduces this Greek word phronema. And essentially what that is, it's a way of thinking, feeling, believing, acting that constitutes a way of life. And in her book, she's talking about theology and churches, and so she compares and contrasts like the Orthodox phronema to the Catholic phronema to the Protestant phronema, and really exploring how different these traditions are, like even to the level of like their very base assumptions. And their foundational assumptions then lead to behaviors and lifestyle. And so I was reading that, and then I started to thinking, I wonder if that concept could be brought into the sobriety world. Like, what is like the sober way of life compared to the acting out way of life? And like, what do sober people think? What do they do? What do they believe? Like, how do they manage conflicts in relationships? And so, that was the offering, the language offering from Orthodoxy that started a lot of this question. And what I'm discovering as I'm beginning this process is that, sober people, they tend to be marked by presence. They tend to be marked by relationships, marked by community, like actively seeking relationships, actively seeking community, actively seeking to make contributions to the world, actively seeking to gain more awareness of their own selves, taking, whether they call it a daily inventory or a check-in or going to confession or something, some manner of getting to know more of their inner life. And, and it's this. There's a calmness to them, really, a calm non-defensiveness. And part of how I've been exploring this is I'm doing this series within a series in the podcast. I'm roughly titling Lives of the Sober, where I'm tracking down now people who have been clean and sober 25 years or more, and just asking, like, hey, so your life is a testimony that something you're doing is working. Like, what are you doing that's working? What have you been doing for 25 years or more to help you stay on this path? And the patterns jump out really fast. Like, it's people who they stay connected to people, they stay active, they take care of their bodies, they take care of their minds, they take an inventory of themselves, and things like that. So just off the cuff, those are some of the things that jump out the most about what sets a sober person apart from a non-sober person. It's the level of presence that they can bring.
Okay, and so obviously you have this podcast, the Outer Circle Inner Stillness podcast, that teaches about what's necessary to experience healthy sobriety, and you talk about this isn't just about abstaining from sex or abstaining from drugs or alcohol. When you believe that recovery is about much more than that, it's really about life transformation. So how do you help people experience life transformation as a counselor, as a podcaster?
Yeah. How do I help people? What I'm coming to discover is that I think we really seriously underestimate the power of we underestimate the healing power of a fully present human being. And this idea, it's informed some by Orthodox thought, a lot also by internal family systems, Pranama, and both of these are traditions that really emphasize like the inner life, getting to know the core of oneself. And we'd say in Orthodoxy, mastering the passions. In IFS speak, we talk about unblending from parts, unburdening parts, and in both cases, getting down to what is the true essence of a person. In Christian speak, we talk about that as the image of God, that is pure and incorruptible. And in IFS, we talk about the self as marked by this fun alliterative list of traits where we say like the core self of a person is calm and curious and compassionate and creative and courageous and confident and has clarity. They are more with all of the parts if you're able to access it. And so what I'm discovering is that really working to be present with people seems to evoke a lot of certainly insight and confidence in gaining that insight. And perhaps that's as far as I can take people is insight. And then from there, they must seek their own healing. But what I can also offer, though, in that insight space is attunement. And that's referencing what we know from attachment science and interpersonal neurobiology, is that when you're in the presence of someone who is fully present with you and attuned to you and feeling your feelings and able to validate your internal state with you and create for you that sense of feeling felt, that is the basis of secure attachment, which ideally forms when we're very young, but can also be developed as we grow as well. And from within the context of a secure attachment and a healthy relationship, there is a way that we're able to find what we need. We're able to grow in confidence, grow in insight, grow in courage, and with some specific facilitated conversations, do some work like unburdening and understanding the traumas and everything. But I think all of the really particular like trauma interventions or specific reflections, unburdenings, etc., all of those are built on this foundation of relationship and secure attachment, and all of that is based on presence. So how do I help people? Well, if if any of this is working, it has to do with the degree to which people can be fully present with each other. So that is the main tool that I bring to not intellectual data, although that's helpful, and not homework exercises, although I wish my clients would do them more. It's very much there is a healing power within each of us already, and we just have to be able to be with it.
I agree 100%. Now, let me ask you, you said to be fully present, and boy, that is a spiritual concept, that is a mindfulness concept, and that is the key to really being present in one's own life. And so I'm going to ask you, what do you think the daily essentials are that every sober person needs besides learning how to be present?
Yeah. What are the daily essentials? Or it's funny as we're thinking through questions for this. Of course, it's at the last minute that I think is like the question that like I really want to talk through. It's this idea of like why do we need stillness? And so this would probably be the daily essential I'd really want to camp on, idea of stillness, silence. And, a specific way that could look, a specific exercise that I'll give to people is, can you spend, 5 minutes a day in quiet? And they say like only 5 minutes, because like more than that can become overwhelming, especially for beginners. And one of the main important things is the consistency. Way over quality, way over quantity, but like whatever you do it every day. And so starting with something like, can you be quiet for 5 minutes? So fully awake, no substances, no technology, maybe walking, maybe sitting. Probably sitting might be a little bit better, but sitting or standing. But can you be with yourself in the quiet for even just a little bit? And why do we need this? Why do we need stillness? Why do we need silence? And coming from within Christian thought, Christian practice is, we believe that in the inner stillness is the place where God speaks, and we're able to most fully know God. And in the inner stillness, in our core self is the image of God that is through a variety of practices becoming transformed more into His likeness. Even apart from specifically Christian thought, we'd recognize that the true self of a person is the inner self. What happens in the inner life directly impacts what happens in the outer life. And without change in the inner life, there is no lasting change in the outer life. And so why do we need stillness? We need to get to our true self, our calm, curious, open-hearted, compassionate self. When we're there, we are for sure healed and able to be healed. And that is also the way we're actually most able to connect with other people. There's this idea running around that like a good relationship is one with like a lot of compatibility or a lot of like common interests and shared interests. And I'm going to challenge that thought and say, no, it's possible to have a deep intimacy even with a lot of differing ideas and different beliefs. And compatibility isn't what makes the relationship run as much as the ability to be present with each other, and especially present with each other's big feelings. And so this is something I definitely am still exploring, still working on in my own marriage, trying to be fully present, fully tuned to, my wife and her feelings and her distress, and she's learning to do that with me. And it's very hard. It's really very hard. And we're very, very different people. And maybe some could even say on some level, like not compatible people. But, 14 years and 3 kids into a very difficult endeavor, we find ways. And a lot of those ways have to do with the ways that we're able to be, fully present with ourselves and fully present with each other, fully compassionately curious, open to each other's experience. And when we do it well, it's really great. And obviously there's variations, but yeah, so coming back to like the daily essentials, yes, I'm gonna say it, most of all, the stillness. But aside from that, some sort of connection with another person is really essential, whether it's a conversation or even a quick text or face-to-face time would be wonderful. I would lean toward, some sort of body movement, body care, and some sort of daily inventory, daily reflection, daily journaling, daily log, daily check-in, where you look back and say, hey, what happened today? What did I feel today? What am I grateful for today? What was something I thought about today? Or just, what's something I needed today? There's endless variations on what that reflection could be, but something that gets you to stop, slow down, look inward, and see what is there.
Okay, well, that really helps me to understand some of those outer circle values that you're ascribing to, and really to understand what the core values are behind sober living. Now, again, you've got 25 years of recovery, and I know that you do a lot of coaching, if you will, when men and women tend to get complacent about their recovery, or they go through what you call recovery fatigue. Can you say a little bit about that?
Yeah, and also to clarify, I have about a decade of recovery. I'm not one of those long-term saints yet. I'm just talking with them. Working through the recovery fatigue. So a lot of our life is built on small choices that build up into bigger choices. And it's really important to recognize our lives as happening on a trajectory. My life, my recovery, it's not, I'm not finding it as helpful to think of it in terms of here's a goal, here's a milestone, as much as here's a path, and I need to be on the path. And I need to be going a particular direction down the path. So it helps me to consider that nothing I do is neutral. The interactions I have, the shows I watch, the music I listen to, the food I eat, like any sort of sexual experience, any sort of, substance experience, those are loaded experiences. They're not neutral, and they set us on a trajectory toward a particular place. And so navigating recovery fatigue, so along with things like stay connected, stay rested, give yourself time to step away from things and rest and recharge, is this idea of making small choices that set you on a healthy trajectory. And it gets to be small choices because it doesn't have to be anything major and extravagant. I don't need to go on this, expensive retreat to some mountain villa in Europe to save my recovery. And I don't need all of this fancy, software to, make my life better. And I don't need new toys and new technology and spa days, not necessarily. What I need is small choices to say, I should go to bed early, or I should maybe not have that second piece of cake, or I should write a line in my journal instead of tweeting another tweet, or I should send a quick text to somebody to say, hey, I'm thinking about you. Can you think of me? Can you pray for me? And I think it is essential that we let our recovery be built on small choices, and just make a lot of small choices in a trajectory toward our outer circle, rather than thinking oh, my life is stressful, I need a new partner, or I need to, move away or get a whole new job. I mean, sometimes we need those things, but there's a lot more cases, I think, when just a lot of small changes in succession actually amount to a lot of big changes.
Okay, so you've given us some of the basics. How can people get a hold of you if they're interested in finding out more about you, your philosophy, or your podcast?
Yeah, so my practice website is newpatterncounseling.com, newpatterncounseling.com, and my podcast, Outer Circle Inner Stillness, it's hosted on some of the major podcast platforms. You can look up more information there at patreon.com/outercircle, and you can also support the show that way. I have an Instagram account at New Pattern Counseling, And those would be the best ways to get a hold of me and follow the show and support the show. And yes, I'd absolutely love to hear from you. In particular, I am actively recruiting people, whether clinical people or lay people, who have 25 years or more of sobriety. And if you're open to sharing your story, I would love to hear from you.
Okay, well, now that is no small feat. I mean, let's face it. When you say recovery, are you talking about any addiction?
Yes. Recovery from any substance, any behavior, partner recovery, so being the partner of someone in recovery, process addictions, all are welcome. What I'm interested to discover, so far all of the people I've interviewed have adopted a more abstinence, classically abstinence-based model. But I am curious if there are some people who have managed to pull off 25 years of reduction doing moderation or doing harm reduction. And if people like that are there, I would really love to hear from you too.
Okay. Well, very good. So one more time, now that you've thrown that at us as, really wanting professionals and lay people to get on the committee, as Patrick Carnes will call it, and help inspire people. One more time, give them your email address.
My email is Rhys@newpatterncounseling.com. And it's Rhys spelled RHYS at newpatterncounseling.com. You can visit my website at www.newpatterncounseling.com or reach out to the podcast at patreon.com/outercircle.
I love that, Rhys. I mean, you really have a purpose. You have a mission. I know you were listening when I was talking about what Patrick Carnes said about going full circle and giving back and, going through that tough suffering to get to the transformation and then giving back to others. And that is definitely what you've done. So thank you so much for your podcast. Thank you for the wisdom. Can they still buy your book?
When I publish it, yes. I have not fully completed the book yet, but someday I hope to have a book to sell.
Okay, well, I knew that was in the works, so I wish you the best with that. And anything else you want to say before we end?
Prioritize the silence. That's good. No, I'm good. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, thank you so much. You take care.
You too, Carol. Thank you.
I am choking over here. I don't know on what. He's got a lot of passion, and I invite you to take a look at his podcast, Outer Circle Inner Stillness, and see if it doesn't resonate with you. He's looking for that long-term recovery, and he wants to help you get there. So thank you, Rhys, for reaching out. And I'm going to end the show since I'm really ready to choke on my own words. But truly, I want you to visit my website, www.sexhealthwithcarolthecoach. It will turn into early recovery couples work. It will show you some workshops I'm doing, some trainings I'm doing, and I so look forward to doing the show next week. And I'm going to have Marnie Breaker on talking about her couples community next Monday. So we'll see you then. And as I say at the end of every show, there will only be one of you at all times. Fearlessly have the courage to be yourself. Make it a good one, and have a great week.